People's convoy of American truckers heads out tomorrow from California towards D.C. They'll arrive in the Capitol about the same time as President Biden's State of the Union address next week. They're protesting the national emergency declaration over COVID and vaccine mandates. Their website also says they want to restore the Constitution and individual rights, which got us thinking about the Canadian truckers, who that country's government crushed. Lawmakers in Canada agreed today to extend emergency powers pushed by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, allowing the government to take extraordinary means to crack down on those protesting the vaccine mandate. Canada has already arrested nearly 200 people, including Tamara Lich, who helped organize the peaceful protests. Today, a court denied her bail, saying she was likely to reoffend if released. Trudeau's regime has also frozen more than 200 personal and business bank accounts without a court order, frozen millions in fundraising and Bitcoin accounts. Economic warfare. Police also got authority to use force to stop protesters, horses on foot, and using pepper spray and pepper balls. They also were allowed to enter vehicles without a warrant, arrest the people inside, and tow them away. Up until a few weeks ago, I always considered Canada, and most of my friends did as well, a slightly nicer, more liberal, and hockey-obsessed northern neighbor. But Trudeau's tactics are far more similar to Vladimir Putin than a functioning democracy. Again, he revoked due process over a few hundred truckers blocking streets. Joining us now, Ian Samuel, former law clerk for the late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. All right, Ian, forget what's happening in Canada for a minute. If you were advising these American truckers who are setting out, is there anything preventing what happened in Canada to happening to them?
Well, as a formal matter, of course, there are the guarantees of the Due Process Clause and things like that, the Fourth Amendment. But there's a reason that James Madison called the Bill of Rights a parchment barrier, because the real answer is no. What could happen to you is exactly what would happen to the Colorado miners in the early 1900s when they went on strike. They'll send in Pinkertons and kill you if they have to. Organized labor efforts to shut down important parts of capital's machine have always been met with, explicitly illegal violence if necessary. And so what I would say is, you got to be organized. The law is not your friend. Your friend is the guy in the next truck. That's what I would say. And so, yeah, you could hire a lawyer and you could ask for bail, but we've seen what that's worth, right? And so, the honest answer is this is an example of a labor movement that is shutting down. In Canada, it shut down real factories, like a really important factory. And we saw what happens, which is if you mess with capital, you're going to get the horns every time. So, I don't know. I don't think probably lawyers are going to be the answer. Not that I don't think we're great.
Well, at least you're an honest one or a realistic one at that. But from a real sense, the arresting people who were doing something illegal, even if it was peaceful. Martin Luther King always used to say, if you want to participate in civil disobedience, you have to accept the consequences of the law. What was stunning to me is how the law so rapidly changed to all of a sudden confiscating and freezing the bank accounts of people who weren't even out there. Is that even possible in the United States?
Well, of course it's possible, because that's an excellent point, which is, wow, it's amazing how the rules suddenly change out from under you as soon as you're threatening anything important to people who, as it turns out, make the rules. They're the ones who say what the rules are, and they are the ones who will change them. As soon as you start to, pinch their pocket, they will change those rules every time.
Do you think
any
it was
labor
really
organizer will tell you that?
Was it really, though, about money, or was this threatening Justin Trudeau's sort of liberal worldview, and thus if the truckers threaten President Biden's liberal worldview, we sort of saw a little bit of the same tactics, not the financial tactics from, say, Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan?
So the answer to your question, not to be too cute, is yes, it's both. The reason that they got the horns as bad as they did is because the Ambassador Bridge was actually an important piece of infrastructure that really hurt when they shut it down. And it is also true that they happened to be in disagreement with our beloved Mr. Trudeau about vaccine mandates, even though, of course, as we know, truckers in Canada are actually more vaccinated than average.
Right.
But watch what happens in D.C. As long as they don't shut down anything important, I don't think they're going to get the horns. But the instant that there is some factory or whatever that matters to someone, they will. And if
Or they
don't,
shut
then,
down.
oh, it's just another harmless march.
Yeah, or they shut down the Beltway, and no federal employee can get to work. We'll see what happens. Some might call that progress. You never know.
Yes.
Ian, good to see you as always.
I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people who wouldn't. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.